Good evening, everyone. I hope I'm coming through loud and clear, live and direct. Live and direct. Of course, this is BroDiallo on an impromptu Wednesday. The reason I'm here on a Wednesday evening, off weekend, let me just check the calendar. Yes. Oh, shit. No, wait a second. Oh, wait, yes. Second, third. Okay. The reason I'm here on a off weekend is because I didn't wrap things up the way I wanted to in Monday's Q4 radio broadcast, and I didn't want to wait a whole nother Monday to finish off this topic and to move on. Testing. I can't really hear myself. I hope y'all can hear me fine. I don't know. Let me LL Cool J this mic. With the mic in my hand and the crowd in the stands. I hope everyone can hear me. I'm good. Thank you. Hey, Geechee, what's up, man? I wish I knew you was free. I'd love to have you jump on this track. Okay. All right, let's get down to it because I got a lot to talk about. You know, if you were with me Monday, or if you went and watched the YouTube or listened live on Q4 Radio, you'll know that the first broadcast was economic apocalypse. And I had to explain to everyone, and I'm going to give a real brief overview so I can get to the death code of capitalism. But I'm going to give a real quick overview of what I said, because as I was doing my own research, my own etymology, I found out that apocalypse, and not just because I'm a godless heathen, not because just because the Lord hasn't touched my heart and I haven't got on my knees to please Jesus, not because, I am not, the chosen tribe, the lost tribe of Israel, because I don't go to the mosque and bump my head on the floor. It's not because I'm a godless man that I understand apocalypse and Armageddon to be a good thing. By the very definition of the word, apocalypse literally means to uncover. So the apocalypse to the powers of the world, because the ones who teach us about to fear the apocalypse are the established church. And the established church, what they say, the church is the handmaiden of tyrants. So every oppressive government, and it ain't just Christian, it ain't just Muslims, it ain't just the American empire, it ain't just the Saudi Arabian oligarchs, these Hindu, these racist caste system Hindus, the genocidal bloodthirsty Zionists. Every single religion is the handmaiden, the bride of an oppressive state. So to the oppressive states, the oppressive religious institution, and the oppressive economic systems, the parasitic economic system, they see their destruction as the truth being uncovered is harmful. Because apocalypse, look it up. Look it up. Apocalypse literally translates to uncovering, to revealing. So the world as we know it will end when all the truth is revealed, when the people acknowledge and understand the truth. So they've made knowledge an ugly thing. Like every single fascist state starts off attacking scholars. It embraces anti-intellectualism. The experts. Everybody hates the experts. So anyway, but I hashed all that out Monday. Apocalypse, why apocalypse would not necessarily is an economic apocalypse is not what they said it would be. They say an economic apocalypse is if profits stop being generated, if industries stop expanding, if the wheels and the grinding turn of capitalism ends. That's not the economic apocalypse. The economic apocalypse is when the people who are the true engine, when the human resources are no longer willing to be resources. When we understand that the people who rule us are not only illegitimate, they have no power besides the power we give them through our own delusions, our own lack of competence, our own lack of understanding of the systems and institutions of capitalism and white hegemony. But I talked about that already. Now I want to talk about the death code of capitalism. Because even if, let's say, you are working class, middle class, upper class, whether you secured the bag like Killer Mike. I have to turn off these notifications. Sorry, y'all. Y'all heard that. Even if you secure the bag, even if you about to get on your Jay-Z and Beyonce, even if you about to get up on that Obama level of black wealth, that Oprah level of black wealth, that Bob Johnson level, that Tyler Perry level of black wealth, it's transient, it's fleeting, it's self-destructive, because capitalism is a death cult, and there's really no winners in all of that. You know, it's literally like Dr. Bobby Wright said, you're trying to get to the upper deck of the Titanic. The whole shit is sinking. And again, remember, when I say sinking, I am not talking about the economy. I'm talking about the ecology. I ain't worried about, the lines don't go up. The profit margins aren't expanding. I'm not talking about the Nikkei, the Dow Jones, the NASDAQ. I'm talking about the quality of oxygen, the fertility of the soil, the acidity of the ocean, the phytoplankton, the biodiversity. That's what's going down. Fuck them numbers. But most people, I sound crazy. I sound irrational. I can't tell you how many times I've sat here across from Negroes who are under the delusion that they are capitalists. And they sit and tell me, you're talking on a microphone. You got plants. You're not utterly destitute and starving. So I have no right to criticize capitalism because they're under the death code of capitalism. But when I see these things, I don't think about the capitalists who profited from these material things that I utilize. I think about the laborers who were exploited. Jeff Bezos ain't made shit. Jeff Bezos ain't made shit. Mark Zuckerberg ain't made shit. I think about the laborers. So when I move into a home, I don't think about the wealthy investors who did nothing but move paper around, who did nothing but hit some strokes on the keys. I think about the mason, the electrician, the carpet layers. They are the ones responsible, and they were exploited through doing it. So no, I don't thank the capitalists for any goddamn thing. I hate the capitalists for everything. But I digress. I'm not going to rehash Monday's show. I'm going to move forward because this is why I'm sitting here. I could be, working on a myriad of other things. I got so much to do. I'm so far behind. When you got things to do, any you married people out there, you got obligations unfulfilled and your spouse is trying to be nice about it, but in another way, they still kind of being quiet. I got things to do, man. The roofers. Yeah. Shout out to the roofers. You know what I have to say? A floor is only as good as its ceiling. Anyway, so let's get into the death code of capitalism because I also want to talk about something else that grinds my gears. Black people swallowing right-wing reactionary lies, hook, line, and sinker. But let's talk about the death code of capitalism. As I say, economics, as practiced in the United States, as practiced across the globe currently, is not a academic force. It is not an academic pursuit. It is not an academic Hey, Chauncey! What's up, bro? Man, life ain't been too good. Sometimes Chauncey be forgetting I'm here. I'd be thinking Chauncey didn't forgot about me. Co-conspirator number 2. What's up, man? It's been a minute. Chauncey's in the comments, y'all. Everybody shout out Chauncey. International man of mystery. I can't keep up with him. He's an international player with a passport. Oh, these passport bros, Geechee and Chauncey. Anyway, I'm going to hate on you. Anybody. I don't want nobody to have what I ain't got. Anyway, what was I talking about? I was happy to see Chauncey. Where was I? Oh, the death call to capitalism. Capitalism, you would think it was what is kind of a marriage between the hard sciences and the soft sciences. I had a leftist. I actually took a few semesters because I was moving around a lot. I took a few semesters of economics at the University of Missouri in Kansas City, UMKC, right off Troost. And what's funny about UMKC is a beautiful campus. It's a beautiful campus. Let me give a shout out to my number one fan. There you go. Let me give you a shout out to my number one fan. Now, it's a beautiful campus. And if you know anything about Kansas City, which I'll be there next weekend, it's the street called Truth. In fact, there's this organization made by Saste. Shout out to Saste, an urban farmer. He's an urban black hillbilly. There are such a thing. This brother be going up in the nooks and crannies and crevices of the ghetto and planting farms and making getting acreages of food from every little crevice in the ghetto. Saste, And he has literally this organization called East Meets West of Truth, because west of Truth is affluent, where you got nice homes, beautiful. And east of Truth is slum, my side of Truth. My hood, where I came up, is a slum. And right on that dividing line between the slums and the affluent areas of Kansas City is the UMKC campus. And I took an economics class there. And I had a intro to economics. I was a political science undergrad, but I had to, had some electives. So when I took that class, this guy had a PhD in economics. And what's weird is the UMKC economics department puts out some pretty radical economists, which is weird. Puts out some radical economists, some leftist, progressive economists. And they got one on Black Power Media, Dr. Linwood Tahi, black economist. And he was like, when I decided to pursue my doctorate in economics, I wanted to be an economic innovator. I wanted to be a person who was able to comprehend the system in order to improve and change. And he said, literally in 6 years it took me to get my PhD in economics, I just became a glorified bean counter. And I realized there's really no opportunity to change this shit, because it doesn't matter how good my research is. It doesn't matter how in-depth and thorough my data is. It doesn't matter how well articulated my analysis. No matter what I do in this shit, you ain't changing shit. And the best you could do is get in where you fit in, or get out. And that's different for other sciences. If you read or if you follow Noam Chomsky said, the only place in the educational arena where you're encouraged to go against the norm, you're encouraged to question the authorities, is in science. He said in science, they like people who buck the system, because they're the ones who are going to get the next big discovery that's going to generate windfall profits. He said the only free thinkers in academia are really those on the cutting edge of technology, and they're only allowed to blow that shit up. They're only allowed to blow that shit up because the next big discovery, the next big innovation has the potential to increase the profit margin of whatever corporation that is funding it, or whatever corporation the government is going to surrender that publicly funded technological advancement to. So when in the late 80s, early 90s, when the internet was becoming monetized, when it went from a publicly funded good to a privately owned commodity, and the tech bros were taken over from the oil barons and the other elites, They were coming to work with skateboards. They had foosball tables, and they'd wear t-shirts and ripped jeans to work, and they're bucking the system. And that's all fine. But we see more than 2 decades later of the internet industry, those ripped jeaned, cereal bar, foosball table offices, right? They're just as bloodthirsty, ruthless, union-busting, parasitic, scumbag capitalists, just like the men in the Oxford suits. The offices that had the cubicles, the offices that had the strict dress code, the offices that had the strict hierarchies were no different, ultimately, for the workers and for the masses than the offices with the cereal bars and the offices with the bean bags. Same when we got hustled. We really thought these tech innovators were going to change the world. And they only changed the methodology and the means and the intensity through which the world was exploited. So anyway, economics. I said all that to say is economics, which was supposed to be a fusion of the hard sciences, economic formulas, economic calculations, hard data, hard numbers, fuses with philosophy. The idea of the merit-based economy, the ideas of free market liberalism. And they lied. Who had that song? Return of the Mac. You lied to me. The reality is, economists are Pied Pipers. Their job is not to articulate or to even understand the economy. Their job is to literally justify the existence of an illegitimate economic system. The economist's job is to rationalize why one person within a company can be a billionaire while the vast majority of people in that company are working, doing all the work, and are still on food stamps like Walmart. And they sit up and they come on these TV shows with the little numbers going across the top and neon letters. And they sit there and say, well, you have to understand, market indicators, economic trends and projections, for the good of the market. They have to articulate and explain to us why this shit that we very obviously, nobody's done $1 billion worth of work. And we got all these damn billionaires. And not only do we have all these billionaires, the billionaires of today are richer than any other rich people in any other time in history. Are the rich people today smarter than the rich people 100 years ago? Is Jeff Bezos smarter than John D. Rockefeller? Does he work harder? Does he have better ideas? Why? Where did it come from? Capitalism, capitalist economics are not rational. They're not scientific. They are not legitimate. It is a cult. You literally have to be indoctrinated into it. You literally have to swallow a bunch of irrational, baseless lies in order to live with it. And if those lies break down, if the irrationality of that breaks down, on the other side of those lies are people with billy clubs, tasers, and guns that will subdue you or kill you. But on the other side of that wall, while you're behind the delusion, they will tell you it's all about your hard work. It's all about your willingness to sacrifice. It's all about your ability to discipline yourself to get ahead in this society, to secure your place, to make a contribution, to recognize and realize the fruits of your labor. How do you have a system where literally, I know y'all done forgot about the Occupy movement. I don't hear anybody talking about the Occupy movement. Obama, we still people, we talking about the COINTELPRO of the 60s. We had people going on and on, COINTELPRO, talking about the 60s COINTELPRO. We got people talking about, some of y'all go all the way back to the Pinkerton riots and to the destroying the left. Y'all go all through history talking about the government y'all talk about conspiracies, black, what was that shit, that propaganda, black ideological extremists or black extremists, and everybody was up in arms. Oh Lord, black ideology extremists, I think, under the Trump administration, they like, oh, they coming. And they had some dude, Balogun, who beat his wife so severely that she had a miscarriage. And y'all were pretending like the feds arrested him because he was about to take up arms to defend us. And y'all were acting like, oh, black ideology extremists, they coming for me, as if you are a black ideology extremist. When your only reason you joined the movement is because you thought, you could get your reparations check and go invest and live a luxurious life under capitalism too. So y'all talk about that, but I don't hear anybody talk about, in our own lifetime, in front of our own eyes, one of the most thorough and comprehensive counterintelligence movements of our generation. And that was the dismantling and utter obliteration of the Occupy movement. The Occupy movement was one of the biggest grassroots movements. And you had people hating on Occupy. But I was at several Occupy encampments. I went down to Ferguson, Missouri. I was down here in Chicago. I even went to the one in New York City. And I'm like, wow, this is a lot. And Obama illegally coordinated. Because remember, our CIA is not supposed to operate within these borders. Military intelligence, black identity extremists, thank you. We're not supposed to operate within our borders. The FBI is not allowed to operate and act against citizens without a mandate from the courts. There's supposed to be a distance between the federal government and its policing apparatus and U.S. citizens. We are supposed to be policed by local jurisdictions. And the only way you're supposed to come under the eye of the federal enforcement is if you violate federal crimes. And localized protest and advocacy and trying to secure concessions from your local government is not a federal crime. And there were no terrorist acts, there were no bombings, there were no coordinated violence. But Obama illegally coordinated local police forces with national police, with national federal agencies to obliterate the encampments and scrub the public consciousness, the media of the Occupy movement. And it's like it's never happened. When's the last time? Be honest with yourself. You just overheard somebody talk about the Occupy movement. It's like it never happened. And I promise you, 25, 30, 40, 50 years from now, people are going to be like, wow, there was this thing called the Occupy movement. That was a COINTEL program. That was a counterintelligence program. Well, what do I know? But one thing that still resonates from that obliterated movement, it wasn't just physically destroyed, it's literally wiped away from the public consciousness. It's wiped out of the public's consciousness. It's going to be 2 or 3 generations before anybody even remembers that. And believe you me, I'm not jeffing. I'm not tooting the horn for the Occupy movement. I had my issues there. I was down there bumping heads with the socialists and the anarchists. I was down there debating techniques. The guy, I was down there talking to the black folks, talking to the white leftists. But one thing that resonates from that was the 99%. They did realize and articulate and did try to demonstrate to the masses. And one other thing about the Occupy movement, it was global. It was coordinated from movements in sub-Saharan Africa, the Middle East, Europe. So, but one thing that came from that, the 1% versus the 99%. The 1% versus the 99%. It was the first mass movement in the United States that was explicitly class conscious since the early 1920s, since the era of the Wobblies, since the era of the anarcho communists and the anarcho-syndicalist movements of going back to World War I. That was the last time there was an expressly class-conscious movement in the United States, because even the civil rights movement was not class-conscious. In fact, it was led by the Negro upper class, by and large. It wasn't started by them. I mean, if you haven't memorized Malcolm X's message to the grassroots, listen to it weekly. He talked about how the black working class started a movement that the white elites deliberately put the Negro. And I take nothing away from Dr. King, because I do believe that Dr. King was becoming a revolutionary. He was evolving into a radical. He was injecting his call for justice with his call for leftist Pan-Africanists. He went and sat with Nkrumah. You know, he understood that it had to be international and it had to be socialist if it was going to be anything. It couldn't just be integrating and becoming equal with our oppressors. But they killed him as he was in a crucial crux when he truly became a threat. I love Wise Intelligence line. Martin taught me much when he simply tried to love him, brother, all about peace, and the devils had to snuff him. Ooh, that's my line right there. Anyway, so I even been in the movement, been chomping at the bit, been a foot soldier in black liberationist struggles since I was 14 years old. And there's two things that I try to bring up no matter where I'm arguing, where I'm organizing. Number one, ecology. The need to center ecology in black liberation struggles. And number two, the need for class consciousness. The need for class consciousness. And for those Negroes of means to commit class suicide. And for us Negroes of the masses, us working class and impoverished Negroes, to have innate hostility to the black elites. Every black elite should be considered guilty until proven innocent. We ain't got to mimic our oppressors. We can say, no, you're guilty of class treason and race treason until you commit class suicide. We have to be class conscious and class antagonistic, and the elite's responsibility is to actively engage in class suicide and class subversion. That's a whole nother discussion. Because no matter, it's dead broke. Dead broke black folks and affluent black folks are all full-fledged card-carrying members of the death code of capitalism. And why is capitalism? Because there's all kinds of cults. There's all kinds of cults. My favorite, if I had to join a cult, join my favorite types of cults, I mean, I can't even joke. Let me not play because this ain't funny. Are sex cults. Now, sex cults, the problem with that is, I know it sounds wonderful, but there's never been a sex cult that did not center around sexual predation. Generally of women and children, but usually all members. So sex cults are not like fun. Let me not even say that joke. I play too much sometimes. But sex cults, right? You have sex cults. You have some theological cults. You know, you have the mainstream religion, and then you have the offshoots of theological cults. You know, you have what could be called cults of personality, where it's really around an individual. But capitalism, not all cults, because some cults can be a number of things. You can have a death cult that is theological. You can have a death cult that is secular. You can have a death cult that is secular. The Trump MAGA cult is essentially, even though it's fully populated by the evangelicals, and it's mainly populated by the evangelicals, you will find a lot of secular libertarians, a lot of neo-Nazis who are mystical. They have this like Aryan mysticism, but they don't really qualify as religious. So the Trump cult is the Second Amendment people. So you can have an overlap of cults and a fusion of cults. but capitalism unto itself is a prosperity cult and a death cult. And if you look at the characteristic of cults, like cults are can be authoritarian, meaning that the cults have strict hierarchies and the people at the top are not to be questioned. Turn off notifications. Damn. The people now, yeah, someone mentioned North Korea. Like North Korea, oh, that's wrong. North Korea is a cult of personality. You know, Kim Jong-un, that's like a hereditary cult that's in its third generation. The cult is really centered around an individual. And it's really no fixed belief system besides be loyal to this individual at all costs. And, you know, at first it was his granddaddy, then his daddy, now it's him. And it's kind of weird because he murdered his brother a few years ago. They go around killing off all the other siblings. So when old Kim Jong-un kicks the bucket, you know, his favorite son might rise to power, but he'll have to go about slaughtering all of his siblings because this is a familial hereditary cult. But let me just talk about the characteristics of cult, because they try to tell us that capitalism is a rational system. It's scientific. Look at all these numbers, these charts, these graphs. Look at all these articulate people in wire rim glasses and tweed suits here talking and articulating using multiple syllable words to explain why the Walton family has $1 billion, while the average Walmart worker lives in poverty, to explain why it was illegal for you to take your car and drive someone around for money. They would arrest you. And while I grew up in Brooklyn, New York in the 90s, catching dollar vans and gypsy cabs, and the NYPD was pulling over dollar vans and gypsy cabs, confiscating people's vehicles and deporting many of them and charging them with criminal charges, fees, deporting many of them. But when Uber and Lyft comes along, it's an enterprise. In fact, most of this internet shit is stealing from black people plus internet. And I know I'm going down a rabbit hole. I'll try to make it back. But if you look at it, my paternal grandmother, whom I didn't know, I knew her, but we didn't have a relationship. She used to run a boarding house, right? And they made that shit illegal. They went to black people because during Jim Crow, black entertainers and black people couldn't stay in hotels. So if you was Cab Calloway, if you was little Sammy Davis Jr., if you were a pre-civil rights, if you were a Jim Crow entertainer, you could travel the world, but you couldn't stay at the nice hotels. You couldn't stay at the hotels that you were headlining. So there was this whole industry of black boarding houses where you get wonderful, beautiful accommodations and you get a meal, you get your suit pressed, and your whole entourage get taken care of. And you go do your show at Carnegie Hall, you go down to 18th and Vine, you know, you go to these theaters, the Chinese, and you do a big show, and then you go to the Juke and you do the colored show, you do the Chitlin circuit. But all that money and all that fame was circulating through the black community due to segregation. And then here come the regulators. Here come the fire marshals and arresting and confiscating people. This is an illegal establishment. This isn't a licensed establishment. You can't use your personal home for commercial. This isn't zoned properly. This isn't zoned for commercial lodging. And they took away the black boarding, and here come the tech bros. They took the black boarding house, the black rooming houses, plus the internet. You take black innovation plus internet, and you got a white industry. That's what they did. That's all Airbnb did. There were black rooming and black boarding houses all over the black community, all over this country due to segregation. Same thing, dollar van. I was up and down Flatbush. When I was at Brooklyn College, I was going up and down Flatbush in the dollar van. And then when I graduated and I was working at Downstate Medical Center on Church Avenue, Church. And I lived in Crown Heights back when my 20-year-old son was a newborn baby. And I was working the midnight to 8 a.m. shift at Downstate Medical Center. And I walk out the front door, go 1 block on Sterling and Church, and hop in a gypsy cab. Hop on the dollar van, but it wasn't really, you had to go all the way over. But I hop in a gypsy cab, $5 as far as you want to go, $5. And the cops be lurking. And this Haitian brother, this Trini brother, this Panamanian black man who might have a doctorate in math from his Caribbean university. I rode in the back seat of some of the most well-educated brothers from the Caribbean, from Central and South America, and from Africa. Multilingual. I literally would get a dollar van driven by a scholar. And they drive me to Brooklyn College to listen to some white PhD. And they knew more about shit. They knew more about shit than the man who I paid $5 to drive me there. But what is that? You take the gypsy van, the dollar van, black industry, plus white boys and the internet, and you got Lyft and Uber. Same thing with DoorDash. Same thing with these gambling websites. DraftKings and all that. They ain't nothing but numbers. Running numbers. Little gambling. Everything that's so innovative on the internet is them stealing black economic adaptations that black people adopted during segregation and Jim Crow, being relegated to the underbelly of the economy. And black people had innovations and that were outlawed. And they didn't say that. They were like, let's make weed legal. And we're going to go to all these people who were arrested in weed and help them and give them. And what about all the dollar van people? What about all the gypsy illegal cabs that were arrested, harassed, deported, had their property confiscated? They should get reparations too. Every single boarding house and rooming house in the hood that got kicked in by the fire marshal, every single home that got confiscated, they should get them too. It's crazy. We talk about reparations from slavery. They owe us reparations from the shit they did yesterday. After they pay us for slavery, they owe us for Jim Crow. They owe us for the $1 trillion worth of land and infrastructure that they ran us off for when it was the Great Migration, the Southern ethnic cleansing. They owe us reparations for every affluent black person with good credit that got denied a business or a home loan yesterday. But I digress. Let's talk about capitalism as a death cult. We have to acknowledge that capitalism is not a science. It's not a scholarly endeavor. It's a priesthood. If you are an economist, you're either an anti-capitalist economist or you are a capitalist priest. There is no in between. Ain't no such thing as halfway. One of the main characteristics that you find in a cult is that it's an authoritarian. It can't be questioned. It can't be challenged. You come in, you say to broke people, poor people, you say, I know personally, I know a brother who was raised on public programs. I know a dude who was raised on suckle, who drank powdered government milk out of the bottle, who ate government free cheese, who lived in public housing, who got his eyeglasses and his vaccinations through Medicaid, who went to public school on public transportation. This is a dude I knew since I was in grade school. And he went off to school and got a degree at Rockhurst University in accounting and finance. And he's like, socialism and public programs are harming us. I'm like, dude, you would be malnourished if not starved to death if it wasn't for public programs. And now you got a little bit of money and a little bit of degree. You up here talking like you ain't, like I didn't see you trying to get the measurement right between powdered milk and tap water so you can eat a bowl of cereal. Stop it. In fact, his mother, who was a nurse, went to school on a public welfare grant to help elevate him out of the projects. And now I ain't talked to the dude in like a decade, but he became a coon. He went from a hood rat to coon. That's like, you ever watch Pokemon and how an animal can evolve. A lot of these brothers that make it out the ghetto, their next elevation, they don't evolve into freedom fighters. They don't evolve into black men and black women or to rep. They evolve into the next, from hood rat to coon. I mean, if I did it, and they really think they did everything they did because they special, because they work hard. They were smarter than the average rabbit. Coon of coons. I can't tell you how many brothers I was in the hood with. I got a lot of homies good. I guess I got to give recognition. Got a lot of homies from back in the day I'm still close with, still my brothers that didn't coon out. But I can't tell you, I had to cut off more than a few brothers because they made something of themselves and forgot where they came from. And some of them get Negro wake-up calls. Anyway, let's talk about the characteristics of a cult. Cults are generally authoritarian, right? They have strict hierarchies, right? And they also have strict and immediate consequences. Capitalism is literally a work or starve system. You don't get more authoritarian than that. And it's not like you work for more or you get less. It's literally work or starve. Capitalism is authoritarian, top-down, hierarchical, strict structure. That is a characteristic of a cult. And the reason why cults have to be authoritarian is that they cannot withstand criticism. That's why people get mad at me. You calling out other black people. You dissing other black people. You disrespect. Listen, anything that cannot stand up to critique, criticism, mockery, dissection is not worthy to follow, even if it's something you believe with all your heart. And anytime you believe in something, and instead of, when I hear people critique Pan-Africanism, like them coons at ADOS Foundation, Pan-Africanism is dead. Pan-Africanism is a fantasy. Whenever I hear a critique of Pan-Africanism, I don't reject it. I jump in it with both feet, like, ooh, let me examine this. Maybe they're right. Hey, let's do it. If you believe in something and when you hear criticism of it, you automatically become hostile. And you hear people out here, this is a deflection. Anytime these people, anti-intellectual, I ain't with all that talking. It's not because they down to do work. Believe you me, go to the guy in your neighborhood that says, I ain't with all that talking, and present him with a well-articulated, well-laid-out plan and say, listen, this is step 1, 2, and 3, and see how the people that with all that talking do the least amount of work. All that talking, I don't want to engage in any type of work or any type of organization that hasn't been well thought out, that hasn't been debated, that has not gone through the rigors of discourse, examination, review, critique, dissection, reconstruction. I don't want to participate in nothing that has not gone through the rigors of mental, intellectual examination. If you ain't with all that talk, how do you determine what is the right way to move forward? Through emotion? You do it through feelings? Through intuition? I'm with all that talking. But anyway, authoritarians can't afford. They have to limit the scope of discussion. So if you're going to talk about capitalism, you can't talk about capitalism juxtaposed against socialism or communism. You have to talk about free market capitalism, regulated capitalism, neoliberal capitalism. What flavor of feces would you like to eat? Do you want hot steaming feces straight off the presses, or do you want desiccated dried feces? Do you want cold frozen feces? You're going to have to take this shit, but we can discuss what form of this shit you want to take. Do you want capitalism that is white, exclusive, segregated capitalism? Do you want inclusive, integrated, affirmative action capitalism? That's all, but you cannot discuss anything that could be a viable challenge, or that is an authoritarian system. And when they fear that, it's just like me. I didn't raise my children to be atheists. I did not raise my children to be religious. I raised my children to be independent, free thinkers and allow them to make their own decisions. I've never hidden the fact that, hey, I'm an atheist and I'm a vegan. And, for me, within my house, we follow it. No. And like I say, I'm so fond and so proud of myself when the Jehovah's Witnesses came a knocking and my son was like, those people are so nice and polite. And when they come to the door, you just leave them out there and it could be cold. And you don't. And I said, son, if you want to go talk to them Jehovah's idiots, if you want to go talk to the Jehovah's wickedness, go on out there and talk to them. And I'd be like, this is what they believe. And he was like, nobody could believe that. Right? When my relatives, I got Muslims in my family, I got Christians in my family. I got a holy war. Every holiday, there's every wedding and funeral, there's a holy war. It's people praying, my grandma told me my daddy going to hell for being a Muslim. My daddy said my grandmother going to hell. There's a holy war in my own damn family. And I'm like, any Muslims in my family want to take my kids to the mosque to bump their heads on the floor, put them in them, musty dresses and have them wash their feet? Go ahead. I don't care. Take them to the mosque with you. At least I'll know they come back with clean feet. You want to take my kids to the tabernacle? You want to take them go ahead. My kids' grandmother, their favorite holiday was Easter. Because they sneak and eat some non-vegan candy. She used to take them out to Easter brunch and they loved rabbits. A man in a bunny suit. They loved Easter. And I'm like, take them. They your grandkids. Do what? Tell them about the wonders, what Jesus did. I didn't have to hide them because I knew that my kids at 5, 6 years old, 14 years old, you put the most well-versed theologian in front of them. Because I know my argument's strong. So I ain't with all that talk. But I know I got relatives in my family that are religious and they don't want their children exposed to nothing. They don't want their children exposed to nothing. When my oldest son went to school, my youngest hasn't encountered that yet. But when he was in high school, before he went to college, and they were in biology class, and when it was time to teach evolution, there was a note sent home to the parents. And the parents could exempt their children from the evolution portion of biology. They could exempt their children from the sex, from talking about human reproduction, the gametes, to talking about ovaries, uteruses, penile function, testicles, semen. See, they would send home notes a couple of times, and he went to a Chicago public. This is public school. The same people out here talking about censorship. This was public school. And my son was flabbergasted, like, why I got to go to class? But the girls, and I know this ain't culturally sensitive, but my son had some Muslims that went to his school. A lot of Muslims went to his school, and he used to call their mothers ninjas. Because, and he was like, how come the ninjas? He was young, he didn't know no better, but I tried to teach him better, but I thought it was funny. So I probably let him go on calling the Muslim women ninjas. He's like, how come the ninjas don't have to go to theology class? How come the ninjas are exempt from, and they pass anyway? I'm like, because their shit can't hold up. Their shit is weak. They're in a cult. They're in a theology or a religion or a cult. And it is authoritarian, meaning you can't think about shit outside of it. You can't entertain thoughts or entertain facts or data that contradict your beliefs. And people I really have people out here thinking they're pro-capitalist and they support capitalism and they want to secure the bag because that's their own independent conclusions. And you will find that people who believe in a religion know the least about the religion because they don't need the information. They don't need the data. They don't need to study. They don't need to research because they already know the facts in my heart. But capitalists are the same way. I don't want to hear nothing about that socialism stuff. I don't even want to hear the facts about capitalism. I really believe Elon Musk is a genius. I really believe that social media was brought to us not by the labors of publicly funded public infrastructure, But capitalism came to us as a result of these enterprising, musty-ass white boys working in a garage. There's people out here who still believe that Apple Computers was founded in a garage, that Bill Gates toiled away in his father's basement developing Microsoft. There's people that believe that shit. The people who are pro-capitalist understand capitalist the least, and it is a necessary defense mechanism. I got people right now, when I criticize somebody like Elijah Muhammad or Dr. Malachi York, and I'm like, here's the documents. I've literally shown people videotape testimony of Malachi York confessing to abusing children, and they look at it with their own spectacles, and they're like, oh, they forced him to say that. Oh, that's doctored. So you can look and say, look, capitalism doesn't work. It's not sustainable. Capitalism needs public bailouts. Capitalists do not work. They steal profits and they steal the wealth of other people's labor. You can show them. You can show them internal documents. It's not even hidden anymore. You ain't even got to read Karl Marx. You can read Adam Smith, who is supposed to be the godfather of capitalism, of modern capitalism. And they even like, this shit ain't going to not work. What? They're like, I don't need to know. I feel, I believe. So it's authoritarian. Capitalism also has extremist beliefs. Not capitalism, cults. Cults are authoritarian. They have extremist beliefs. What is an extremist belief? An extremist belief means this or death. Extremist belief is something that cannot be challenged through evidence. Authoritarian control means you do this or die. Malcolm learned that. Malcolm was in a cult. And when Malcolm went against the cult, he lost his life. People were like, they want his head delivered. They want his tongue cut out. You're in a cult. You know, if the worst you do, you leave me. If I'm working with you, the worst I'm going to do, I don't want your head in a box. You know, if you work with me and somebody go against us and you hurt them, I'm a Tekashi 6ix9ine your ass. No, I ain't with that. I'm nonviolent. The only violence I endorse, I support is defensive violence. Offensive violence, retaliatory violence is unjust. You can't justify it. The only violence I sustain is ascending defensive violence. I don't support lateral or descending violence for any reason. But anyway, authoritarians say, do this or die. Extremists say, I will die if I can't do this. Extremists literally means if we got to melt the polar ice caps, if the polar bears got to go extinct, if 50,000 children have to starve to death, even though the global food system produces enough food to give everybody full nutrition and still have enough left over to feed another and a billion and a half people that don't even exist. You literally have more housing stock than you have homeless people. There's enough housing infrastructure. There's enough housing infrastructure to give everybody a place to stay. You literally got people sleeping on the sidewalk outside of empty high-rise buildings. That's extreme. Extremist is every year we're going to manufacture more cars, even though we manufacture more cars than the consumer economy can do. And they have big, huge fields. Every year, a new model of car is pushed out. That's crazy. That's extremism. But we look at it as norm. That's when it's really scary. When someone can calmly watch extremism happen and not identify it, not even be moved by it. It's another thing about it. So authoritarian capitalism is authoritarian AF. In fact, what did Lenin say? The highest stage of capitalism is imperialism. extremist beliefs, that fiat currency, that paper. We should destroy the world to sustain this. Isolationist. When you join a cult, the first thing a cult's going to tell you is we're your family now. I'm the captain now. We're the family now. We're everything. And everybody else outside of this little cult is against you. The communists are going to come and get you. The extremists, the terrorists, the Southern. Right? Here they all come. Oh, we got some pro North Koreans in here because they talking points. Okay. I don't know about I only know about the fucking I ain't gonna get into this North Korean debate. These goddamn tankies. What are tankies doing over here in my sphere? I'm a Black Pan-Africanist. That tanky shit is for the white left to work out. Leave my goddamn stomach alone. Anyway, where was I? Isolationists. Cults are isolationists. Right? Now, another word for isolation is called alienation. If you know anything about Marx, then you got to know a little something about alienation. Capitalism alienates you from yourself. It alienates you from your labor and the products of your labor. It alienates you from everyone around you. I mean, I can't get into, but just look up. But, you know, there's evidence, abundant evidence that capitalism, even 100 years ago, they knew, even before this intensive mega technological capitalism that we're afflicted by today, international global capitalism, you know, the end of history, the end of all things capitalism. And so it is authoritarian, extremist, isolationist, I would but alienating. And the final primary capital the primary characteristic is veneration of an individual. If you don't have authoritarian, extremist, isolationist, and veneration of an individual, you don't have a cult. You might have something else, but capitalism goes further than the veneration of one individual. Capitalism venerates individualism, a whole nother level. Capitalism is not simply an economic system. It doesn't function as an economic system. It functions as a cult. Capitalism does not produce anything. Capitalism does not produce anything. I say this, and I'll say it one more again. If you went to work as a worker, if you went to work and behaved as a capitalist, and you could work for the most capitalistic firm or company or institution, they will fire you. They will fire you. The thing they teach you about capitalism, they teach you about hard work, sacrifice, individualism, and competition. But when you go for work for a capitalist company, what's the first thing they tell you? We're a team. We're a family. You share everything. You cooperate. You coordinate. So capitalism is not present in you don't want a house. You don't want to live in a house that was built on capitalist principles, where the mason, the contractor who was responsible for the mason, was competing against the electrician, was hoarding resources from the electrician. You don't want to work where the goddamn carpenter gets all the money and only gives pennies to the architect and everyone else involved. If you lived in a house that was built by capitalism, based on capitalism, the only part, when you look at manufacturing, when you look at extraction, going to extract raw goods, resources, I don't care if it's a trawler fishing out in the ocean, I don't care if it's a mine underground, I don't care if it's a goddamn McDonald's, or as I worked in high school, I worked at Wendy's. When you go to these workplaces, they tell the individual workers to conduct themselves socialistically. Everything that is produced in this society is done through cooperation, coordination, coordinating, and sharing, whether that is sharing the workload, sharing information, sharing your talents, sharing your supplies, sharing your goddamn stapler. It's places that if you hoard all the staplers in the office, you would be crazy. But if you hoard all the money, you're a brilliant capitalist. Everything in this society is produced through socialistic cooperation and coordinated values, not competition. But they tell us the whole economy would collapse without competition. But every company within the competitive economy would collapse if their base level employees did not compete against each other instead of working together. And we never realized this contradiction. Socialistic practices produce literally every fucking thing. But when it comes to say, okay, the work was done, the ore has been mined, refined, processed, shipped, and then it's been produced and it made a laptop. And then the laptop has been marketed by artistic people who create icons and beautiful display advertising, more coordinated, cooperating work. And the laptop is put on the shelves by retail workers, driven to the place, put on the shelf by retail workers. Then there's some slick guy who has to wake up in the morning with no health care and go out here and inform you about how you can use it, how this product can be made. And then when the product is sold, the money is in the bank. A motherfucker who didn't mine shit. He didn't go to the mines. He didn't fucking extract it from the mines. He did not process it. He did not refine it. He did not drive it and ship it to the plant. He did not work in the plant to make it into a finished product. He did not drive it to the place. He didn't do shit. Why did he get the money off the top? The CEOs and the stakeholders. Why the fuck did they get the top money? They get the first money first and money off the top. And we sit here and like, well, Zuckerberg, the CEO of Apple, we really think that. But that's where capitalism enters the economy. Capitalism is not a production system. It is not an economic, it is an extraction system. Capitalism is justified theft. Profit is theft. Profit is theft. We really believe all the work is done, that they've convinced us that when a whole bunch of people come together and do work, at the end of all that work, there's this bit of money left over called profit. After you pay the wages, after you pay for everything, there's this little bit of money left over called the profits. And the profit goes to the investors. What the fuck is an investor? They got us thinking, well, the investor is, you think when you go on to Robinhood.com and you buy $5 worth of stock, that money is extracted by Apple, and Apple goes out and uses that money to pay for shit. When that speculation. I grant myself one N-bomb. I have to quote DMX. I'm sorry, Kwabena, Clear the Airways Project, but I have to say it the way it's written. Are y'all niggas crazy? Are y'all fucking crazy? This shit makes no sense. I got people telling me, oh, you against capitalism, but you support the internet. Did capitalists fund the internet? Did capitalists pay for the lines going underneath the ocean? Did capitalist scientists, capitalist programmers, capitalist infrastructure? Where the fuck did capitalists enter the internet? The internet was made by the public through public investment, through public infrastructure, through publicly controlled, publicly funded institutions, universities, and government agencies, DARPA. And when the internet was completed, it was packaged up and literally handed over to private industry. The auto industry would be nothing if not for the public roads. It's nothing more than capitalists skimming and justifying taking our wealth. There is profit is theft. Profit is the only way to have profit. If you fail, if you undercompensate or don't compensate the workers, that's the only way to have profit. So when you make your living, you are doing what is called earning. You earn your income. The capitalists have unearned income. Man, if you don't shut up about the... Go on with that, man. I have to put you in timeout, Tony. Calm down. Maybe we can have this debate some other time, man. But go on with yourself. And how they get you, man? How they get you? How they get y'all out there like that? Ask yourself, why do I believe in capitalism? What is wrong with me? Why are you pro-capitalist? Right? Capitalism, and let's just review the byte model, right? The byte model, when you realize the byte model, you'll understand that capitalism indoctrination. They spend billions and billions of dollars to indoctrinate us to accept into a system because our ancestors didn't go for this shit. When the Europeans came into Africa, there's a really good book. I have a book that just so well points this out. I don't see it. I think it's downstairs. Anyway, I had this book called Cows, Pigs. I used to have a bookshelf over there. I took it downstairs. China is colonizing Africa. Yes, let me just go ahead and say it so Tony can take his ass to bed. China is colonizing Africa. Yeah, I said it. Now, moving on. What was I saying? Oh, the byte model. Let me tell you how you can free yourself. First thing that capitalism does is behavior control, right? These billion-dollar corporations, when they say, well, they have multi-million-dollar advertising budget. Advertising does not just exist to sell you products. They don't even try to sell you the products. I've literally looked at commercials, and I think you might have had this experience too, where you look at a commercial and be like, what the fuck are they selling me? There's this guy with a six-pack on the beach. There's this woman in a string bikini on a paddleboard in the ocean. There's this lively music playing, and then it goes from that, and they're dancing around in a nightclub, twirling martinis in the air, and then the commercial goes off, and I'm like, what the fuck are they trying to sell me? They'll literally have car commercials, and you don't even see a fucking car. They tell you nothing about the car. They'll show you some lady, beautiful woman, sprawled out on the hood of a car. They'll show you a man in a slick suit sitting behind the wheel of the car. They don't tell you about the cost. They don't tell you about the miles per gallon. They don't even tell you where to find the damn car. You know what? They literally. Let me just address this. When I said China is addressing Africa, he said, listen, Dr. John Henry Clark, who was a socialist, said, anybody inside of Africa that cannot be identified as an African is a colonist intended there to do us no good. He said, nobody from outside of Africa has ever entered Africa without the intent of exploiting Africa. That is the Chinese, the Arabs, the Europeans. But you go ahead with your bad self. It's really people who believe in Chinese communism when China has most favorite trade status with the U.S., the biggest economic partner. But I digress. But you go ahead with your Chinese communism. Knock yourself unconscious. Anyway, what was I saying? So anyway, they sell you a fantasy, right? So you are under what is called the byte model, behavior control. You become subjected through behavioral control. It regulates your physical reality. Or B.F. Skinner had stated in his book, Beyond Freedom and Dignity, if you give me my own specified world, I can create for you any person you want. I can take a child. You give me a child of average means, of average intelligence, nothing exceptional about that child. You give me the average child, and you give me my own specified world. I can turn that child into a beggar, a thief, a CEO, a doctor, and I can make of that child whatever I want through the means of control. In the 60s, they understood in the old school, it was called gunboat diplomacy, that they could operate, they could control the world through military dominance. But then those who were military dominated came up with asymmetric warfare and asymmetric guerrilla warfare tactics. And so they were like, listen, we're expending a lot of resources. And that's when the whole hearts and minds thing came in. They literally went into the dark continent. They came to the new world and said, look, you're a godless savage. You're a godless heathen. I'm bringing you the light of Christ. Give me all your motherfucking resources. And then the people were like, you know what? You're the one who's the cannibal. You're the one who's a savage. You're the one with the tyrannical God. You're the one who's godless. Screw you. I'm about to go up in these woods. I'm about to guerrilla warfare your ass. And so then they got their scientists together with all that talking and said, listen, we're going to be expending all the wealth we steal from the third world. We're going to have to reinvest into suppression. So how can we control people while allowing them to giving them the oppression that they're free, allowing them to believe that they are free? There are none so enslaved than someone who already, or no, that's not how the quote goes. There's no better way to enslave an individual than to give them the illusion of freedom. So now black people, even though everything that black people were enduring 100 years, and I'm not saying things aren't better. Lord knows I'm not disrespecting the struggle and sacrifices of our ancestors that got us here. I am well aware and well conscious that if BroDiallo was here, instead of it being 2023, if it was 1923, and I'm like these crackers, the buggers got no shame, I could go and have people kick in my front door, drag me out in front of my family, cut off my testicles, mutilate my body, set me ablaze, and string me up from a tree right in my own front lawn, and have themselves a picnic, take photos, and put it on postcards and send it around the world. That's what our ancestors had to endure from these white folks. I know with my heart that things have changed. But as we acknowledge and give thanks and praise to our ancestors for the struggles and things that change, we also have to acknowledge what remains the same. And whether it's chattel slavery, whether it's Jim Crow, or this new integrationist post-racial America, the same people who controlled the infrastructure, who had direct control of the systems and institutions and have the lion's share, or should I say lions, the parasited maggot share of the resources has not changed. So we get rights, we get the franchise, we can vote, we get to even play president for 8 years. But one thing that has yet to change is the fundamental drive for this shit from a materialist analysis, Marxist analysis, is that the means of production have remained in the same hands, even as rights change, even as opportunities. But before, I couldn't whistle at a white woman, and now I can marry and have a whole family with a white woman and post it all over social media, and nobody but sisters will call it out for what it is. Right? So things have changed. But we get so caught up on what has changed, we ignore what has remained exactly the same. And if the resources remain the same, then you ain't nothing but 2 legislative cycles or 2 voting cycles out of slavery. You're no more than 1 voting cycle out of Jim Crow. We already seen we wasn't nothing but 1 election cycle and 1 or 2 Supreme Court nominations away from the end of affirmative action. Your shit, as long as they control the means of production, as long as they control the apparatus of the state, then your shit is transient. Or as what Saul Williams said, we not free, we just loose. You know, if I got my dog in the cage in the living room, or if I got my dog running in my yard, the dog think he's free. Like, I was in the cage all day, but today when my owner gets home, I run in the yard and thinking that's freedom when I still own the damn dog. Anyway, so behavioral control, they control reality. Information control. Do I got to go into how the capitalists control information? They dictate our behaviors. You got black people out here. I had a bunch of black kids I was working with the Green Teens program. And I said, what's your favorite shoe? They all said, except for maybe 2 of them. 2 dozen kids, except, out of 25, 26 children, only 2 of them said didn't say that Jordan was their favorite shoe. And Jordan hadn't even played basketball in their lifetimes. They never even seen Jordan play, but Jordan was their favorite shoe. And they knew in their hearts, it was my decision. This is an independent decision. None of them knew who Philip Knight was. None of them knew anything about the infrastructure. And I said, you got on a pair of Jordans right now and spent your whole damn check on it. Where's that shoe made? I said, can you take it off? Let's look at the tongue. Bangladesh. Can you find Bangladesh on the map? You don't know a goddamn thing about this shoe. And it's an ugly ass shoe. Them shoes don't look good. Lord, I know I'm not a sneaker connoisseur expert, but them Yeezys and them Jordans looking worse every cycle. How they got you loving something and you don't even know why you love it. That's behavioral control. That's thought control. So the byte model basically means anybody that has behavior, information, thought, and emotion. Play with my money, you play with my emotions. Control, they got you. So capitalism is not a rational, sane system. It's not a system. We have what we have in spite of capitalism. Listen, if you're a black person who gets to eat every day, who has a secure home, who has a relatively dependable car, if you have the ability to celebrate and travel, and it is not because of capitalism. Everything you have in the United States or under capitalism comes from relentless fighting against capitalism. And as long as the ultimate superstructure of capitalism exists, everything you enjoy that you falsely believe comes as a result of capitalism is under direct and immediate threat. So whenever capitalism gives you a phone, gives you a car, lets you get an education, lets you get a secure house, you should spend and utilize all of those gifts, all of those opportunities to subvert, to challenge, to destroy capitalism. And make sure that more people get it. And even if you outlive the collapse of capitalism, for everybody who has shit, you got shit. And everybody who doesn't have shit is a potential threat to you. And instead of being like literally in my own community, where the class stratification is growing, the few black people who got in, who were able to buy property, able to get an education before this whole shit swallows us whole, they armed themselves to protect themselves from the black people who didn't get who weren't able to secure crumbs. And we're ready to shoot black people to defend crumbs instead of fucking shoot the motherfuckers that got the pie. And that's what they always like, yeah, you'll arm myself. I see these people. I follow Lord Jamon. I follow all these black middle class and black affluent black people online, and they talking about their guns, knowing goddamn well not one of them bullets is reserved for revolution. Not one of them bullets is going to be aimed at any billionaires. Every single one of those bullets is for the imagined or the potential crackhead, the potential hungry, the potential poor, the potential mysticidal and misguided and maladapted other black people. And they get mad at me because I'm not a goddamn gun enthusiast. So anyway, what are the solutions to this? You should not be any black person. Bless your heart. Any black person that is either believes they're a capitalist, because you're not. Any black people that believe they're a capitalist, or any black person that is outside of capitalist but thinks they can one day become a capitalist, or believe that because they navigate and dwell in a capitalist system, capitalism is not a survival. It's an inhumane system. I could throw you in a tank of water. That don't make you a fish. Even if you're able to tread water and keep your head above from drowning, that don't make you a fish. Get the fuck out the water. Drain the tank. Drain the swamp, whatever. So anyway, every black person, regardless of your status, regardless of what you got, should be anti-capitalist. You cannot say you're pro-capitalist and pro-justice. You can't say you're pro-capitalist and pro-humanity. You can't say you're pro-capitalist and you're pro-black. There's nothing. Once you align yourself with the capitalist, that's it. I don't need to know shit else about you. And for you few black people who understand capitalism is bad, but it's all we got. Do you know how old capitalism is? versus how old African people are. 99% of our existence, there was no capitalism. And capitalism is not only an irrational system, it's a short-lived system. It's an unsustainable system. And we will either upend capitalism or perish. It's socialism or perish. It's Pan-Africanism or extinction. So, let me give y'all some solutions. Let me sit back. Some solutions. And we'll try to go into more detail. Pan-African revolution. That means that African people on the African continent and African people of the diaspora, African people in Europe, Brixtonians, African people in Nova Scotia, African Baptists, African people in the Caribbean, Central and Latin America, of the Americas, African people have to coordinate, have to acknowledge our common interests, our common goals, our common enemies, cooperate and coordinate and pull our resources and come to some understanding that we have common shared interests. We can vary in our methodology, our techniques, but the mission has to be one. So Pan-African ideology, Pan-African agenda, Pan-African goals, Pan-African values, revolutionary Pan-Africanism, because we got a lot of Pan-Africanism. I'm black, I'm a proud African, and they want nothing more than to use their African brilliance, their African talents, their African arts, their African identity, and they try to use it as a means of generating profit. There's a lot of capitalist Pan-Africanists. That's why you have to be a revolutionary Pan-Africanist. If you cannot say, I wholeheartedly reject capitalism in all its manifestations, even the state capitalism, the authoritarian capitalism of the so-called Chinese communist leadership. If you can't say that, then you're not a revolutionary Pan-Africanist. And I would go so far as to argue that if you're not a revolutionary, you can't claim, what is the point? You're empty, hollow Pan-Africanism, just an emotional bond. Exclusive. But revolutionary Pan-Africanism, rationalism and radicalism. I know, understand, and I embrace, and I enthusiastically seek to cultivate the rage that our people have. Dale Jones said, if you're not angry and you want to destroy some shit, you're not human. If you cannot be outraged by the depth of injustice, we got thousands of Africans drowning in the Mediterranean. African people fleeing the African continent, fleeing the ravages of climate change, fleeing Chinese colonialism, fleeing the ravages and starvation and political repression, trying to make it to Europe, and the Europeans are sinking the boats. The Europeans are outlawing. Europeans are literally outlawing, rescuing people who are drowning. Goddamn Horn of Africa, Somalia, fucking Sudan is under tyrannical Islamic genocidal practices. We got Jewish, we got Zionists committing genocide against Arabs in Palestine. We got Arabs committing genocide in the goddamn Horn of Africa, in the Sudan. If you're not pissed off, if you're not outraged, it's so weird to me to go on social media and people acting like I'm at peace, I'm centered. How, Sway? Oh, stress isn't bad. What makes stress bad or good is how you process it. Stress makes you human. It's evolutionary. If stress was so bad, if hatred was so bad, the evolutionary capacity for it would have already been gone. Negative and positive emotion. I really don't believe in good emotion versus bad emotion. I really don't believe that hate is any better than love. The only way to determine whether your emotional state is good or bad is how it is applied and how it is provoked. What provoked the emotion and how do you process it? Meaning that what provoked the emotion? I feel love. What provoked this emotion of love? This predatory, narcissistic person who is manipulating me has got me to fall in love. I feel the emotion of love, and I'm going to give myself and endure abuse because I love this person. That makes love horrible. That makes love a bad thing. You say, I feel hate. What provokes hate in you? Injustice. Injustices I see in my own community. And what are you going to do with that hate? I'm going to organize. I'm going to adjust the way I live. I'm going to adjust and use my time, talent, and resources to subvert these oppressive institutions and to uplift and advance and make a positive contributions to the just aspirations of my people. That's some good hate. We got to stop with this that's more capitalist propaganda. If you feel bad, you're a bad person. If you have negative emotions, you're a bad person. If you are not loving life and aspiring, if you're not an Instagram #goal lifestyle, then there's something wrong with you. No. If you're pissed off, you're good. But process it properly. Digest it. Digest it properly. Analyze it. And get with some constructive actions to process it. Don't suppress it or deny it or delude yourself. So anyway, radicalism and rationalism allows you to process the necessary and unavoidable negative stress, so-called negative emotions. It allows you to avoid the delusion. All right, so this dude talking Negro. Okay, time out for you. Anyway, negative emotions, right? So it's not enough just to be a revolutionary Pan-Africanist. You must be a radical and a rationalist, because you could be revolutionary and be fully irrational. You could be a revolutionary. I've met them. I love them to death. They my brothers, but I've met some fucking irrational revolutionaries on both extremes. I know people that are like, yo, we got to arm ourselves and take it to the streets. And I know people like, I'm pro-black, I love my people, but we can't win. They like the scarecrow and the Wiz. You can't win, you can't make it, and you can't get out of the game. So I know the extremes, the people who have delusional expectations and people who are so fucking demoralized, they might as well just step aside and get out the way. Goddamn pro-black Eeyores. So you got to be rational. Rational will allow you to comprehend it, and radicalism will allow you to construct reasonable actions, reasonable plans, reasonable infrastructure and architecture, reasonable organizational strategies that will allow you to begin to dismantle the systems and institutions of global white domination and capitalism. Pan-African. Number 3, socialism. I got people out here that say, I'm not left or right. I'm not a left winger or a right winger. I'm not a capitalist or a socialist. I'm African. I'll tell you, like Kwame Ture said, you got to pick one. There are no other options on the planet right now. We live under a global system of capitalism. And Kwame Ture said there's only 2 economic systems. You can call them what you want. You have an economic system where everybody owns everything in common, or you have an economic system where a few people own and everybody else is exploited. So you have a cooperative sharing economy, or you have a competitive exploitative economy. Nothing else. That's it. You can't have social democracy. That's a hustle. That's what Dale Jones called loosening up to get a tighter grip. We can talk about that more. You also have to be involved in communalism. I tell Black people all the time, you can't live in your home. You have to live in your community. Communalism, you have a lot of socialist, radical, rational Pan-Africanism that don't navigate and commune and engage with the masses, even though they can be frustrating. I know people get mad at me. I go places, people get mad when I show up. But I show up anyway. Stay engaged with your family. Stay engaged with your relatives. Stay engaged with your ecosystem of people. And number two, that's only then when you got all of that radicalism, rationalism, revolutionary Pan-Africanism, socialist, communal, then and only then can you start to structure and engage in subversion and countermeasures. Subversion and countermeasures. A lot of African people, good intentions, believe that we can move back to Africa, or we can identify a piece of territory within the United States or somewhere else and go to Haiti, and we can somehow remove ourselves from this system, distance ourselves from this system, exit ourselves. That is not an option. Planet Earth is a fucking fishbowl. I said on the previous broadcast, there's no such thing as a Japanese nuclear meltdown. There's no such thing as a Canadian wildfire. There is no such thing as American pollution. There's no such thing as sub-Saharan African lead contamination. There is no such thing as Pacific Ocean acidification. There's no such thing as a Mount Fiji. What is that? As a Mount Fiji volcano eruption. All that shit is made up. Oh, shit. I'm not against make-believe. Believe you me. The way I amuse myself, I love fantasy fiction novels, fantasy fiction graphic novels and comic books, fantasy fiction video games, fantasy fiction, dystopian, post-apocalyptic movies. I love fantasy. I understand and value the myth, the value and impacts of mythology, fantasy, make-believe. But we got to know when we're dealing with one from the other. And a lot of black people believe in the myth of the fantasy that we can go somewhere. And that's an American problem. But everything is everything. The nuclear fallout of Fukushima is not remaining within the confines of Japan. The fallout, I mean, we still dealing with, you know, that the jet stream is picking up toxic dust and toxic waste from Chernobyl and putting it here. Don't you know that the rainforest of South America is so abundant because of the deforestation of the Sahara, which used to be a green place that got mismanaged ecologically by fucking Islamic invasion and Islamic colonization? Shit runs deep. All this shit is connected. So you can't move to Africa to escape white domination, but you can, and I encourage you, if this works for you, move to Africa to have a better vantage point to organize against the global system. You can move wherever you like. If you want to live in the big city and organize in the big city, if you want to move to rural areas, if you want to go overseas, anywhere you want to go that you think is a better place for you to maintain your sanity, maintain your productivity, maintain your enthusiasm for the struggle. But wherever you go, you got to struggle. Because you can't escape this system. This system must be dismantled. It must be countered. It must be subverted. You think our oppressors understand that? Our oppressors are here, whether the seat of power is here in the United States, the UN, NATO headquarters, Western Europe, wherever their headquarters is. If they hear rumblings of communist uprising, rumblings of Pan-African struggle in the most obscure places, they went to fucking Grenada. That didn't have no kind of military, that didn't have nothing to send out to the world except nutmeg, and was like, we can't have communists running Cuba. We can't have a socialist government. They don't allow it to happen anywhere, even if it's not relevant, even if there's no money. We like to think, oh, if you got oil, the U.S. will invade you. You know what'll get you invaded quicker than oil? Communist uprising, socialist uprising, a Pan-African leftist governance. And I don't even care if it's Haiti, because they fear that shit. So there are too many black people who organize around escape. We got to leave. We got to go somewhere else. If your organizing isn't centered around subversion and countermeasures to the systems and institutions of white hegemony and capitalism, you're playing games. And finally, collapse management and direction. The system is falling. We waited way too fucking long. We've allowed Europeans and our oppressors to ravage this planet to the point where the planet is at the precipice of no longer being able to support complex systems and complex life forms, including human beings, extinction level events, omnicidal level of events. So as this system collapses, whether it's through collapse from leftist revolution or collapse from its own contradictions and its own maladaptations, just because something is falling, because I was just at a Capleton concert, and he had a bunch of hundreds of black people out there talking about burn down Babylon. Babylon must fall. Babylon must fall. Babylon is falling. I agree with Babylon is falling, but here's the thing. When something's falling, it could fall to the left or fall to the right. As things fall, the worst aspects of the system can intensify, or the best aspects of a system can intensify. As the Russian communists fell, they fell to the right. When communism or the Soviet Union collapsed, it fell to the right. It fell to capitalism. When the Chinese Communist Revolution got corrupted and collapsed, it fell to authoritarian state capitalism. So just because something is collapsing does not automatically mean something better will emerge from it. Something worse can emerge. So as you live in a collapsing system, you have to make sure, hey, as things start to break down and new opportunities emerge, we have to make sure things collapse to the left, that the redeemable components of the community and society are uplifted and advanced. So collapse management, I have to talk more about that, but that's the end. Capitalism is a cult. And we have to do what I call devangelize. We have to bring as many of our people out by calling down and denouncing capitalism and demonstrating to our people that their livelihood and everything they love about life, whether it's the 8-hour workday, the ability to take a vacation, or the ability to walk the street without being harassed and molested by roving bands of white racist teenagers, is not because of capitalism, but in spite of it. And as long as capitalism is allowed to operate in the background, we're under constant threat. And that's that. And with that, I just want to say a couple of things. I'm done with that. I'm done. So if you came here to hear the end of my discussion on economic apocalypse and death code of capitalism, then you can bounce. But before you bounce, let me appeal to you. Please support the BroDiallo show and the BroDiallo broadcast. I get a lot of people that ask me for a lot of things and interviews and talks, and they want me to bring back the book reviews. But I need support. I need material support. This is listener sponsored. You know, all of my revenues, all my support comes from my listeners. So if you please, I'm appealing to you to help sustain, and not just monetarily sustain, but let me know that what I'm doing is of value to you. You can make contributions, become Patreon supporters, or make one-time contributions. If you don't got no bread, I sympathize and identify with that. You know, I respect that. Like Q-Tip said, I respect that crazily. But you can do your algorithmic support, become a subscriber, share the BroDiallo broadcast with your allies, friends, enemies, lovers, haters, and debaters. You know, just share it across your socials. And shout out. And you could even just kick in like ZZ Lion Dad. Just make a one-time kick in. There are infinite ways to support. I've tried to make supporting the BroDiallo broadcast as inconvenient and as simple as possible. And Lord knows, I have nothing but love and appreciation for those who do value my efforts here. The time I take to research and construct these presentations. You know, much love, much respect. Now, I just want to make something that grinds my gears and thank you, Andre. Something that grinds my gears and gets my goat. This whole talk about, first of all, let me just say, them hypocrites. First of all, I don't know if you've heard about this, but this whole bonus hole controversy, where the lie is being told that healthcare workers are being told to call women's vaginas bonus holes, right? And all these people are outraged. First of all, I gotta say, y'all some motherfucking hypocrites out there in the world, because you got all these reactionary right-wingers, transphobes, these transphobic individuals. You can find my Patreon the co-conspirator number one, Chauncey, he shared Patreon. It's basically Patreon/Diallo Kenyatta. You can become a Patreon. But it's also on diallokenyatta.com, and I think it's in the description of my YouTube page. So it's out there. But I got all these people, Lord Jamar, Red Pill, DL Hughley, just some of the most prominent people with millions of followers out here sharing this whole bonus hole. They're outraged. How dare you call a woman's vagina a bonus hole? You're disrespecting women. You're degrading women. Now, I've been around for a minute. Look at all this gray in my beard. Take a look at the beard. Enjoy it. I think I'm going to cut it all off. It's hot. I'm in here cooking. Man, I'm in here cooking. But hey, I'm a tropical dude. My ancestry goes right back to West Africa. My ancestry, my uncle told me they kidnapped us out of the Nigeria, the Yoruba Empire, right? So I can't complain about the heat because I am a true tropical African. As long as I got me some filtered tap water. This is filtered tap water. Stop buying bottled water. Go get you a decent water filter and filter your tap water. Unless, of course, you live in areas where that won't even help you. But by and large, most of y'all don't need to be buying that tap water. Filter your own tap water. Anyway, what was I saying? Oh, bonus holes. All these reactionaries. Lord Jamal's out there. He just loves women. Lord Jamal said, I ain't down for a honey who don't want to submit. Always throwing a fit. Want to talk a lot of shit, but love to get hit from behind. Getting crazy joy from a lazy boy that decline. It seems like the only time I'm not in a fight is when I'm laying the pipe. You don't want me to bone another chick. Quick to claim my name and my dick. Now, this is Lord Jamal, the champion of women. Go back to Love Me or Leave Me Alone. Go back and listen to his song. Go back and listen to Slow Down. Slow Down. Lord Jamar is so concerned about women, or he's using his false concern. He believes women are incubators. His belief system, the cult that he's a member of. I'm God. You're Earth. You are nothing more than a conduit for my seed to come forth. He believes that women are walking incubators. He's against abortion. He's against women's rights. He's anti-women's liberation. He's not gynocentric like I've been accused of being. But he's outraged that women's... Now, I'm from a generation where dudes was out here calling women's vagina the nappy dugout. You don't think I remember them songs? You don't think I remember all the nasty, salacious, disrespectful, dehumanizing, objective terms we had for the vagina in 90s hip hop? I can't speak for modern hip hop because I do everything I can to protect my auditory sensors from modern hip hop. So I fast and I pray that the sexist, misogynist, dehumanizing, objectifying language that they had for women's anatomy today, that it's not still in hip hop. But I don't know. I think the descriptions of hip hop now, the description of women's anatomy is a little more accurate today. A coochie prink, my booty hole brown. That's just an accurate description. Now, I don't think that's a derogatory name. But I remember people calling black women's vaginas a dugout. You walk around with the hoe in front, trying to keep up with that nasty ass cunt. That was Willie D, who also was out here to Willie D. My wife hates Willie. I can't even play Willie. It's like I'm still in high school. I'm almost 50 years old, and I have to wait for my wife to leave the house to play my Willie D records, play my Ghetto Boys songs, because I'm forbidden to play Ghetto Boys. You walk around with the hoe in front, trying to keep up with that nasty ass cunt. Now, he's outraged that medical professionals can call a woman's vagina a bonus hole. All the terms. These same champions of women's autonomy, the same champions of women's terminology for the vagina. I remember The vagina in 90s hip hop was nothing more than a disease-ridden hole that's trying to seduce you and take all your money. I ain't the one. Remember Ice Cube? The one that gets played like a poop butt. He had a whole song about how he can't get played by these sisters. And then once you get them, you ain't got it. I got what I wanted. Beat it. But y'all want to talk about the bonus. You want to clutch your pearls. Bonus hole. Now, I wish that outrage was insincere. I wish these brothers, these black men, these champions of decency were really sincere about protecting the integrity of not only the woman, but her anatomy. But it's a goddamn lie. So if all these brothers allowed for a whole industry. I read articles, but you go read articles back in the 90s. There's only the two biggest threats to black men, if you listen to 90s hip hop, was the police and women's anatomy. Go listen to Grip It on That Other Level. Go listen to Straight Outta Compton again. Go back and listen. Do y'all got them albums? Go listen to Bust Down. His number one hit, Nasty Bitch. Go listen to Bust Down. Go listen to it. I ain't even talking about the mainstream. Y'all talking about Snoop Dogg and all that shit. What about Poison Clan, the bitch that I hate? I am well aware. I was there for the misogyny in hip hop. Even the conscious rappers. Go back and listen to KRS 113 and Good. But now these same people are outraged from bonus holes. I wish, like, if there was a track record of black men not only having personal reverence for black women's anatomy, and on top of that reverence, would not only themselves not dehumanize, objectify black women's anatomy, but also condemn and challenge anyone else from doing it, I'd be like, well, I understand. But, you can't say bonus hole, brother's going to get mad. But even then, it wouldn't be justified. And here's why. It's a goddamn lie. That bonus hole shit, they're sharing a lie. This whole bonus hole controversy was created by, it's not even in the United States, by the UK. A UK white nationalist, right-wing, fascist, racist came up with this. Yeah, Wu-Tang. I mean, you can't find, man. Okay. Yeah, we got, like, shout out to Jungle Brothers. If you want to, you can go to Poor Righteous Teachers, Shakila 2. There was a lot of music that honored and revered black women, that showed nothing but love and the defending black women. So you got Poor Righteous Teachers. Shout out to them. No misogynistic lyrics. Jungle Brothers. Go listen to Black Woman, Mother of My Earth. Black Woman, You Gave Me Birth. A Jungle Brothers, Black Woman. There are several songs that, not everybody in the 90s. There was. I got them albums right now down in my study. So I know there was a lot of pro-black women, but for every one Jungle Brothers, for every Poor Righteous Teachers, for every coup, shout out to Boots Riley from the coup. I can't think of his catalog one derogatory term he ever used for women in general or black women specifically. Can't think of any. So there were artists that we should give flowers or whatever y'all say to compliment. But the vast majority of even so-called conscious rappers, even the 5% rappers, even the so-called radical and revolutionary conscious hip-hop, even Public Enemy, she watched Channel Zero. But anyway, I digress. So first of all, this outrage behind bonus hole is insincere. And because bonus hole came from a European research and European cervical cancer not-for-profit, if bonus hole came over a funky beat and was rapped by Young Thug or one of these other minstrels, and it had what's his name? DJ Khaled screaming "We the best" in the back. And if Bonus Hole had come out of an auto-tune rap, there'd be all kind of TikTok dances to the Bonus Hole song. But let me tell you the truth about this Bonus Hole. Are women told, are healthcare professionals being forced to call women's vaginas bonus hole? Absolutely not. That is not a policy. That is not an advocacy. Here's the reality about bonus holes. There is a cervical cancer research body in the UK and said that there are transgender men who are men who have vaginas. And they said through their research and observations, when transgender men go into for treatment and they have cervical cancer, oftentimes due to their dysphoria or their identification, when you talk to them about their vagina, it can cause a rift between the healthcare provider and the patient. So the patient, if you have a transgender man come into your facility, you can use terminology that will allow you to engage with this patient, navigate their identity, and provide them the best form of service. This happens throughout healthcare. No cisgendered women, no biological women, none of these females, as y'all like to call them, would ever have to be called. No health care professional has been requested, required, demanded, or forced to refer to any woman. Any woman's, every single healthcare provider is allowed to go into the room with a woman and say, your vagina, your uterus, your ovaries. The only people that are suggested that you use the term bonus hole for, or for transgender men and gender non-specific, or what do they call it? Gender non-binary individuals. That is it. No one else. So even if you're outraged by bonus hole, it's not on behalf, it's not because you support women, because that is not something any woman, go find any woman, self-identified cisgendered woman, and find out if her gynecologist, contact any gynecologist. Notice, no gynecologist, no cervical cancer specialist, no healthcare providers anywhere are out here, unless they're right-wing liars, unless they're right-wing reactionaries, can say that they've gotten a memo, that they're in their medical school, in their allied health professional memos, or anywhere. Now, this bonus hole thing is a part of the healthcare. I worked in healthcare for 13 years. Every now and again, you would get a memo from the administration. Like one time I was working at Coney Island, and in Coney Island, the community was an immigrant community that would engage in what is called coining. And just go Google image coining, right? So here I am, a brother born and raised in the Middle East. I'm a young black youth, born and raised in the Midwest, right? And I'm working in healthcare, and I'm providing diagnostic services, right? And I got a memo, and they were saying, listen, there's this medical traditional practice called coining that the immigrant population that we serve engage in. And what was happening is that when a lot of us uninitiated would see people who had this coining practice done on them, they would call Child Protective Services. They would call the police, like, this person is being abused. And they said, listen, this is a specific population that we're trying to accommodate. And this is their culture, this is their practice, and you should not be judging them. So if you work in healthcare, depending on where you work, if you serve an immigrant community, I worked in communities that served Orthodox Jews and Orthodox Muslims, and I had to act totally different. I had to conduct myself in a completely different manner. And so whenever a healthcare facility is servicing a specialized population that has specialized needs, they always change and adjust their policy to better serve their needs, because that is part of the oath and the ethics training that you receive as a healthcare professional. And I don't care if you're mopping floors of a hospital or you're the chief surgeon. Everyone in that hospital has to follow that policy in order to serve that population. So if you are working in a facility that services transgender or gender non-conforming or gender non-specific populations, they can send out a menu and suggestion, because those people will always be looking to address the needs, at least in theory. We know medical apartheid is a thing. But let me just show y'all coining, right? I don't have all my things. So I'm in a goddamn hospital, and I ain't never seen no shit like this. I seen people shot. I seen people stabbed. I seen all kind of shit. But people coming to the hospital from immigrant populations, they don't speak, they can't really articulate their issues. And they were like, listen, don't be alarmed when you see this. We service this community. We service this immigrant community that has practices. Why did my camera all of a sudden? That has practices that are not consistent with what's familiar to the average person working. So that whole bonus whole thing is exactly the same. There was a whole protocol that when Orthodox Jews would come into the hospital, and a lot of it I didn't agree with, and most of it I did. I'm all for it. So when people are out here saying that healthcare workers are being told to refer to women's vaginas as bonus holes, that is a lie. No, it's not scarification, FBA. That is a lie. People are transphobic. They don't accept the reality of gender nonconforming and transgenderism. They reject transgenderism, and they are these bonus hole people are out here advancing and promoting myths and lies. And here's my thing. I'm all for hearing people's arguments, but the moment you fucking lie to me in order to advance your idea, fuck you and your idea. So if you're transphobic, if you don't support transgenderism, if you think transgenderism is a myth or some kind of conspiracy, fine, bring your argument. But every single time one of these transphobes comes to me about what trans people are and what they do, they always fucking lie. They always lie about who these people are, what these people do, what their motive. They always lie. And if you gotta fucking lie to me to get your point across, then I don't fucking accept it. Accept it. So I have to fall on the side. Give me an argument. Give me a rational, honest, evidence-based argument. And people out here mad at they them pronouns. And let me show you one more thing about these people who are telling you. Let me tell you, this anti-transgender people ain't got shit to do with transgender. And people want to know, you want to know, do I support transgender people in their efforts to secure and to live according to their gender identity. I'm all for the pronouns. I'm all for whatever they have to do in order to live. I support it. And when I look at the people who oppose transgenderism, when I look at the people who oppose it, not only do they lie, they're fucking hypocrites. They're fucking hypocrites. What do they say? Let me show you what happens in the Bible Belt. Data finds Republicans are obsessed with searching for transgender porn. The very people that are saying, go out here lying, calling these people groomers, saying gender ideology, the same people that are trying to boogeyman these people and scapegoat this vulnerable population are the same ones preying upon them, exploiting them, obsessed with them. Business is booming for gay sex workers at Republican convention despite anti-LGBT platform. Right? Everywhere you go. Every time you find some Bible thumping, oh, we want to protect children, the groomers. Calling these people groomers. Oh, drag queen story hours, going through all of this shit. And what's crazy is black people are swallowing this shit hook, line, and sinker. And the very people that are literally calling for the obliteration of transgenderism are the same people trying to reinstitute Jim Crow and carry out genocide against us. And they tell the same lies. There was a time when they went out there and said, black men can't control themselves sexually. Black men are inherently, by their very nature, predatory. You can't allow black men to be in the same physical space as the angelic white woman. Go look at Birth of a Nation. It's live. It's free on YouTube now. The whole Birth of the Nation, the whole Ku Klux Klan was founded around protecting the virtues of women from the savage predators. And the very people that were protecting the women from the savage predators were the main afflictors of white women. The white men who were torturing and mutilating and murdering black men to protect the virtue of white women were the primary targets of abusers of white women. The same people that are going to protect our children from these groomers, drag queens, and transgendered individuals are the main ones preying upon children. It's the main ones. Go look up the church. They just found a bunch of Jehovah's Witnesses, the Catholic Church, the Southern Baptist Convention. Out of the two political parties, Roy Moore, the Republican parties literally supported and tried to send a open pedophile, Roy Moore, look him up, to the Senate. The same people that want to protect our children through godly means, putting prayer back into school. Donald Trump is a sexual predator. Donald Trump was on tape articulating while y'all out here talking about, the liberals are drinking the adrenal glands, Pizzagate. Y'all looking at all this fucking fake shit and ignoring the real predators. And the very people that got all everywhere I look on social media, all these fucking reactionary, fake revolutionary black people that are flooding our community. People who trust them, who look up to them. Red pill. People who look up to all these black celebrities out here, following the reactionary, fascist, anti-LGBT. And just like, man, y'all keep falling for this shit. And white people do this shit all the time. They go back as far as the Inquisition. You have the Catholic Church saying, oh, we're just going after the Protestants. The Protestants, what do they want to do? We're going after the Jews, blood libel. They kill and drink children's blood on Passover. Let's go after the Jews. Let's go after the Protestant. And all the other white Catholics like, oh, I'm a Catholic. I've got nothing to fear from the Inquisition. And they sat back and watched the Inquisition demonize these people in names of protecting souls. They watch them demonize and attack and torture and murder people. And then what happened? I'm a Catholic. I'm safe. No, you're a Catholic, but you're not the right type of Catholic. You're a Catholic heretic. You're a heretic. If the Lord of your land, if he wanted your land, if he wanted your woman, he would go to the Inquisition and say, hey, and drop dime on you. Do you know how many Jews in Nazi Germany were sitting back talking about, and wanted the Nazis to take out the communists? I'm a Jewish businessman. I'm a Jewish entrepreneur, and let the fascists, they're going to get rid of these communists and protect my land, protect my wealth. Any movement that scapegoats a vulnerable population cannot be deemed justified. I don't care whether you resonate with that afflicted group or not. I'm an atheist. I'm anti-theist. But I do not support the fascist targeting of Muslims. I don't support the Zionist targeting of Muslims. I have solidarity with the Palestinians. I have solidarity with any Muslim population. I have solidarity with the Muslims in India being lynched and murdered and raped by the Hindus. Not because of Allah and Islam, but because I understand the system. Any type of injustice, any type of targeting of a vulnerable population is cancerous. The fascists always try to target someone in order to justify their existence, and they always, it's called mission creep. So while black people are here like, yeah, you really think Donald Trump and the fascists, the irritated genie is about to do a public talk with David Duke to protect us from the gays? And what you think happens when they get all the legislation, when they finally obliterate and dehumanize and can take out the average Saudi Arabia, they can just be like Saudi Arabia and Uganda, just string up the gays. Who comes after the gays? You think they're gonna be like, okay, we're a murderous fascist, and now that we're done, we got rid of all the transgenders and all the gays and all the quote unquote groomers, we're gonna relax. Now we'll be peace. Then they're gonna say, okay, we're gonna got rid of the transgenders, but there's a lot of effeminate men out here. There's a lot of heterosexual men that paint their fingernails. There's a lot of heterosexual men that aren't the right type of men, aren't the right type of heterosexual. Yeah, you're heterosexual and you have a wife, but do you have oral sex? Do you have anal? Do you guys like fuzzy handcuffs? Did you have sex out of wedlock? They never stop. But if you allow them to unleash or ally with the fascists to go after the most despised group, it's going to get to you. What is that poem? When they came for a communist, I said nothing because I wasn't a communist. When they came from the labor unionists, I said nothing because I wasn't a labor unionist. When they came for the Jews, I said nothing because I wasn't a Jew. And he goes down the list. And then when they came for me, there was nobody left to speak out. And they going balls to the walls against these transgender people, even though most of these people out here telling you that the transgenders are groomers, they're the groomers. Tell you that the transgenders are predators, they're the predators. They're the ones obsessed. And every time the algorithm comes out, every time the Pornhub, all the red states is where they're searching gay porn, transgender porn, she-male, and all that shit. It's the red states, the very people that are telling you that these people are attacking you. And they're preying on and exploiting and abusing these people. And you got people out here through nothing other than consuming right-wing reactionary propaganda who believe that transgender people are the biggest threat. And I believe my grandmother told me that communism, she couldn't spell communism. She didn't know anything about communism. She never read the Communist Manifesto. She never interacted with one communist a day in her life, but she feared the communist. And even when you interact, my grandmother was around Muslims all her life. My father was a Muslim. She was around Muslims. She worked with Muslims. She had people in her family with Muslims, but you couldn't tell her that Muslims were not a threat who wanted to destroy America. What they wanted to do was sell you bean pies and fish sandwich. This propaganda is powerful. And I got people who've never been in any way even interacted with a transgender person, let alone been personally harmed by a transgender person who believe that transgenderism is the end of Western civilization. I wish it was true. I wish it was true. The worst thing, let me not say, I think the worst thing about this assault against transgender people, and it's not even assault, they're scapegoating. The people who are out here talking about the transgender groomer threat they know, the billionaires that are funding this, they know for a fact that the transgender people are not a threat to society, a threat to women, a threat to manhood, but they play that because they can't run and they can't campaign on what they believe. So you go to the polls and you vote for politicians that say, I'll protect you from transgender. And they go to into office and create tax cuts for the billionaires. And yes, they will create legislation, just like when they create legislation against Sharia law. They lie about mutilating children. Children's hospitals are getting bomb threats because right-wing Nazis are online talking about they're in there castrating children and cutting the breast off of little girls when little girls don't even have breasts. Like you people are literally believing anything they say. And they said these same lies about bloodthirsty Muslims. They said these same lies about us. They said the same lies about black people. Even Joe Biden was talking about, I don't want my kids going to school with black kids. He said Biden said he didn't want his kids going to an integrated school because it was a jungle. So he made sure his kids went to an all-white school. And one's dead in the grave and the other's a crackhead. And one died a premature death. Maybe you should have sent your kids to let your kids be bused to a black school, Joe Biden. That's what you get. So the worst thing about this transgender hysteria and all the lies they're telling on transgender and all the lies they're telling on transgender people are nothing but lies they recycled against. They told us that the Mexicans were the rapist. They told us that black men were the rapist. They said that black women were seductress out here to seduce good white men and families. So they even attacked black women, and black women was a threat to the American way of life. They used to say Irish, they used to say Italian, they used to say Jews, but they got grandfathered into whiteness. And what's so weird is when people who were subjected to these same campaigns of oppression, same campaigns, and you even got gay and lesbian people who are like, oh, the system is embracing gays. They're letting me be gay. They're letting me be lesbian. So I'm going to join the right wing in attacking transgender people and say, oh, we want to take the T out. As if they're going to be embraced. So let me just say, get this out because I keep getting it. The worst thing about this transgender scapegoating, it's scapegoating. The worst thing about transgender scapegoating is, number one, the harm that it does to transgender people. But the second worst thing about this transgender scapegoating is that it is seducing so many black people into embracing, consuming, and regurgitating right-wing reactionary propaganda. And I'm going to leave it at that. And let me tell you, ain't no such thing as halfway conscious. Ain't no such thing as halfway justice. If you don't support all... What in the world? Oh. This computer monitor is weird. And I can't get to the top anymore. Sorry. Oh, here we go. I'm back. So that's all I got to say about that. You know, it's just nothing. I just see so many black people falling for the okie doke. And these same fascists that are claiming to protect you from transgender groomers, drag queen groomers, these same people that are selling you that shit, you're on their hit list. And y'all feel safe because you're number 6 on the hit list. When the transgenders, the gays, the Muslims, the atheists, you're on their hit list. But you're going to allow them to knock off the first 3 on the hit list, and you feel safe because you're number 10. Say like Del Jones said, what kind of fool is you? What kind of fool is you? And it's so crazy that black people are regurgitating and pushing false threats when there's so many real and legitimate threats. Are y'all crazy? But anyway, I'm going to wrap this up. Please. I know I'm going to lose a lot of support. I tell black people to stop tripping off of adrenochrome and Pizzagate and look at the real predatory industries. And I'll believe y'all really down for children when y'all kick in the door of a cathedral. When y'all carrying guns at drag queen story hour. I ain't seen nobody show up at a goddamn cathedral with a gun. Go to the temple into Kansas City. Go into Kansas City and that Mormon tabernacle, kick in a Mormon tabernacle with your gun. And then I'll be like, yeah, they want to protect children. Because the Mormon tabernacle, the Mormons have literally been caught driving truckloads of underage girls, child marriages. Ain't nobody kicked in the Mormon tabernacle. And these Islamic schools, systematic sexual abuse of young boys who are sent off to study and memorize the Quran. Ain't seen nobody kick in a mosque. All these Muslim cult leaders with their harems abusing underage girls. UNOI, United Nations of Islam, based in Kansas City. Not only abusing girls, but literally forcing them into child labors, using young girls as incubators to expand the nation. I ain't seen nobody kick in. No, it took the feds to kick in Malachi York's. And you still got young girls who are victims, hundreds of young girls who were raped by Dr. York, impregnated by Dr. York. And y'all ain't reached out to none of them girls. Them girls have to go into hiding. They're still being harassed online. Ain't none of y'all reached out to the wife of the irritated genie who was getting threats online because she came public with the avoid. Don't fucking tell me you give a fuck about these women because you're attacking transgender people. When black women in our movement, ain't nobody called out Balogun. Brother Polite is still out here giving lectures, and people still out here sharing links to Brother Polite when he's up to be sentenced for drugging and abusing a teenage child. But y'all want to talk about transgender. How many of these insane ass black Hebrew Israelites have abused and murdered? That one black Hebrew that impregnated his daughter with like 5 kids. She's online right now telling her stories. Have y'all reached out to her and sent love and support to her? Y'all don't give a fuck about these kids. Y'all out here celebrating that child that had to shoot that man to defend his mama. Are y'all going to help raise money for his trauma care when he gets older? And if he doesn't carry that right, and if that trauma ill affects him, are you going to make sure he's held together and embrace him as a community? Or y'all just going to use him as a meme? Y'all done talking about it. Y'all moved on to Kiki and her thong. While that boy's going to have to deal with a lifetime of trauma. Man, let me tell y'all something. Don't. Like I said, there's so much right-wing, fascist, reactionary, conservative propaganda infiltrating the black community in the name of fighting the transgenderism. Y'all some suckers. Y'all some suckers. But I don't want to leave on that in the pod. Let me, what's left to say? It's 10 o'clock. I told my wife I'd be out of here by 9. I'm about to get in trouble. I have to come and sleep on somebody's couch. Let's not get into the predatory celebrities. Let's not get into the ongoing support that we show for Cosby. Dr. Umar jeffing with Cosby. Let's not forget about Dr. Umar doxed his own baby mama and put up his own baby mama's business address and told his insane ass fans to go to her address and confront her because they were having custody issues with their daughter. Go and ask my wife and her mother why I can't see my daughter. But y'all still embrace him, and he's here to protect our children when he's putting his own children in danger. Man, he end this broadcast before I say some things. I'm going to take my last sip of water. I'm going to thank y'all for being with me and listening to me. Fuck capitalism. And let me tell you, I know sometimes radical ideology, leftist ideology forces us to rally with people, create strange bedfellows. But listen, I'm going to wrap this up. I just said some things. But, middle finger to all you people out here, allowing the right wing, allowing the fascists to infiltrate our community under the guise of protecting our children. What kind of fool is you? No, I say no. Dick Gregory says that all the time. Dick Gregory says it all the time. What kind of fool is you? This is the BroDiallo broadcast. Thank you for tolerating this bonus podcast. I will be Friday. Earn Your Liberation. I believe it's our 26th show with Geechee and Jarrett. I'm going to go and apologize to my wife for going way over the time I said I would go. That's why I married a good woman. She ain't like Keke Palmer's baby daddy. She's not going to go on Twitter You know, if my wife got a problem, you know, she ain't gonna take it to Twitter. She gonna come straight to me first. She might take it to Twitter. Like I said, I don't even, what in the world? Oh, I don't even like talking about my relationship because I could be like Biggie Smalls said, when the wind blows, I see my polos and Timbos. Anyway, BroDiallo broadcast, DialloKenyatta.com. Please like, share, subscribe. Shout out to all the people in the super chat. Shout out to all the people who make a contribution. I am here for, by, and of the people. And with the people's support and the people's ongoing engagement, I will be here for as long as the people will have me. And if y'all deem it's enough of BroDiallo and all this, and when y'all deem it's enough, and y'all can show me it's enough by lack of support or withdrawing support, now I'll go do something else. I'm always going to be engaged in the struggle. That's one thing. I'm never going to be one of those idiots who like, I used to be with the left. I used to be left, but the left has gone crazy. I'm never going to go right. I'm never going to abandon the struggle, whatever role I play. And shout out to everybody that's been so patient with me with African World Coalition. And look for updates coming with that very soon. And with that, I'll bid you a good evening. Be safe. And I'll see y'all Friday morning, Black Power Media. And then Monday, again, yeah, I think I'll be here next Monday. But the Monday after that, I'll be in Kansas City. Hopefully, I can get a hook up some kind of way and broadcast Monday. But until then, y'all have a good evening.